Hello, everyone, and welcome to Canadians with Disabilities and Their Allies, also known as PWD Allies Podcast, available on Spotify or your favorite app where you find it available. Today, I have Elena Lawson joining me on my show, and Elena's actually from Langford, British Columbia. Hello, Elena. Welcome.
Hi, Brent. Thanks for having me back.
And she's camping out on the field today.
I see that. I love the background. I love your background.
Thank you. Yeah, it's up island, so it's a beautiful spot.
Yeah, I love Langford. It's a beautiful area. That would be my second favorite place to move to from Victoria. I like Victoria, but I like Langford because everything's actually walkable from there. It's like I find it very accessible. Shops and everything there. So it's easy.
But you like Langley more.
But I like Langley more, but it's just unaffordable. So unfortunately, yeah, right now it's just it's kind of a dream right now. Prices are just outrageously high, and I just don't know what the solution is going to be about affordable housing for low income people, people with disabilities, anyone who's got any kind of a disability. There's a lot of hidden disabilities too, Neil. It's that are just not diagnosed. There's individuals who have autism. In a lot of cases, like the funding is not there. It's not diagnosed. ADHD. A lot of it's non-diagnosed also.
Well, I don't know if you know Elena, but we had somebody with autism on yesterday, so it was kind of nice to have back-to-back autism show.
Yeah,
that's great.
But the one we had yesterday, she's an adult with autism, so this is a little bit different tack, right? Because you have a son with autism.
Yeah,
and
right.
Yeah, so it's approaching it from two angles, two shows in a row.
This is more of the parent lens.
Yeah. And that's why I like to kind of blend in, like when I talk about affordability and awareness of how these issues in British Columbia, how it's affecting, not just the individual, but parents with children who have autism on a day-to-day basis. Kudos to you, Elena, definitely for everything that you're doing. Just keep up the great advocacy.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not planning on stopping.
We actually have Tara in chat today. She just joined the chat. I just wanted to make a note of that.
Oh, great.
The guest we had on yesterday.
Amazing. I'm glad she's here.
She's in chat today, so that's good.
Oh, hi, Tara.
That's awesome. Hi, Tara. No, the advocacy is not gonna stop, and you're right, when there's a lot of kids still being left behind, and it's not just about autism either, right? So the Representative Children and Youth of BC put out a report at the beginning of November, and it was called Still Left Out, right? And we're talking about the other disability groups, ADHD, Down syndrome, dyslexia. All those children don't get funding right now. And they don't get the support because they don't necessarily have that diagnosis that's recognized. They don't get the supports in the school system either. So I've had some really great conversations with Kathy McMillan she's Dyslexia BC. She's an amazing woman. And she's really fighting and pushing it forward about our education system. And so I stand 100% behind these other groups, and we stand with them, and they need the support just like us. When it comes to the autism funding, it's been a year since the premier has, paused the funding cuts. But he's still pushing forward. This government's still pushing forward with the family connection centers. There's 4 pilot projects going on. And I think I said this last time I was on your show, Brent, is my concern is, you're looking at all these consultation processes that they're doing right now. Well, they all align with the next general election.
Yeah.
So, to me, it's like, okay, well, after this general election, if they get back in, they're going to say, you know what, we've done consultation, we've ticked the boxes, autism funding's out, family connection centers are in. And, that's my greatest fear. You also have to look at the money that they're pouring into this. So $4 million was put just for consultation. $4 million could help these children now. Right?
That's crazy.
Like
that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. And it's 40 plus million just to run these 4 pilot projects, So it's all this money that's being poured into something that, to me and a lot of parents, it's going to fail. It's not going to work for their child. For example, like my son won't even get in because he is high functioning. Some people don't like that term, but that is a term I use for my son. But there won't be a need for him to go into that. The social workers will not see a need for him to get those supports that he has now.
Oh, geez. Yeah, definitely the system is just messed up really bad. And it hasn't been, it's been that way for decades and decades. Like nothing's changed. I remember back in elementary school, there was some students there that were just isolated away. They were just isolated away. Because the teachers felt, well, we don't want to have that the child's being picked on. And so that's
they're being disruptive, right?
Yeah. They throw them into another room rather than include them in with the rest of the children.
Yeah.
And I mean, you and I, Brent, are roughly the same age. I'm 55 years old now.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm 1 year less than you.
And back in the day because I started I started at it was G.F. Strong Rehab Center in Vancouver. They used to have a school for people with disabilities because it's like a segregation, right? So they had the school and the rehab all in the center, and then I think when I was about 7 or 8, like I kept telling my parents, I kept saying, well, because I would come home and our neighborhood was just full of kids, and all able-bodied kids, and so I would be playing like hide and seek and kick a can with all the neighborhood kids, and so like I would come home and I had a sister that would treat me normal too, like a normal sister would, like to bugging her brother and stuff like that, and it was just like it bothered me, the dichotomy, the difference of being in GF Strong and like having this in this disability realm where everybody had disabilities and on crutches or on wheelchairs, and everybody knew it, and you kind of felt that kind of I guess what I don't know what word do you want to use, like oppression or whatever, and then I would come home and it would be so different. And I was like, I don't feel like comfortable at GF Strong. It doesn't feel right that there's this mentality of disabled versus abled, so I just said, I want to try a regular school. So I transferred when I was like 7 or 8. But I mean, again, you're talking like almost 50 years ago. And that was a big deal because there was a lot of segregation back then. And when I first transferred, like the teachers didn't know how to deal with somebody like me, but I learned quick that one of the things I used was humor. You kind of learn that it diffuses, or it makes people more comfortable, right? And anyway, the teachers would call on me, and then they were shocked that I actually knew the answer. And then once they knew that I knew the answers to things, they're like, "Wow, I guess we can call on Neil more." But all that thing of, we've had Vivica Alice on the show too.
Yes, sir.
And she's
She's
from
awesome.
she's from the Single Mothers Alliance. I don't know if you're familiar with that group.
Mhm.
I think they changed their name now. I always call them Single Mothers Alliance, but when I was younger, it was my mom particularly that was really advocating hard for me, like pushing up against the doctors. And by the way, she was a nurse all her life too, and so she had the medical training. And when doctors would say, your son's not going to amount to anything, just be aware that your son's going to be basically a retard. I mean, they used those words back then. Like just it was just like, just assume that that's going to happen. And my mom was like, that's bullshit. I don't,
Yeah.
so she was always railing and pushing up against, and and I appreciate somebody like yourself and organizations like the Single Mothers Alliance, because I realize that it takes that group of pissed off mothers. It's the pissed off mothers, the grassroots pissed off mothers that are going, this is bullshit. This is bullshit. I don't believe it. I'm going to fight. And there's all those grassroots organizations that are great, like you and the Single Mothers Alliance. Hats off to you. Like my mom too. Like she was one of those that was like, this is bullshit. I'm going to fight. Right.
That's what my mom used to do too, Neo and Elena. She used to advocate so hard and to bring awareness of the problems that are in the school system. And she fought and tried having the best that she could have for me as a single mother, bringing me up and my brother. But it got to a point where, my brother actually had having to leave because it was rent geared to income, but it was all based on the household income. So it was like either one stays, one has to go. And I'm advocating to have that part changed, right? Because that's another problem in the system where it needs to be based on the individual, not the household income. And that way it keeps people housed. It keeps people housed, because now with the cost of living, cost of rent so high, I mean, imagine having 8 people in like say a 3-bedroom. Like, and yeah, I know in our building here there was 8 people in a 2-bedroom, but yeah, imagine if it was all rent geared to income based on the household. All those 8 people couldn't be there, and they'd be all homeless. So again, like I feel sorry for anyone that's struggling trying to find affordable housing, especially if they have a disability, because the disability rates, they're hurting the people that they're supposed to be helping. If they're on income assistance and they still have a disability, they're pending to be on disability, but they're fighting all the red tape in the system. And a lot of them have a lot of intellectual disabilities, as all the red tape. And then they get on, they say, well, the workers would say, well, you can apply for this supplement and this supplement. Well, why not just give the people the income? They could buy the supplements that they need rather than have to have conditions. You have to have Crohn's disease. You got to have diabetes. You have to have a whole bunch of different conditions in order to get a basic supplement. They can call it a nice rosy name. We'll call it a nutritional supplement. Well, in order to have that, you have to have a lot of conditions in order to get that. And I'm asking to have that changed, because to me that's bullshit. Pardon my language, but
it is.
I remember saying, apply for all these things. I said, well, the doctor said you don't have these conditions. Oh, really? Yeah. And I said, my doctor said, you don't want these conditions, Brent. I mean, you are who you are. And the government needs to step up to the plate and actually smarten up. That's what my doctor said. They need to smarten up.
Well, they really do. There's tons of loopholes that everyone has to jump through, right?
Yeah.
Like, and going back to what you said, Neil, like our advocacy group, like Children's Autism Federation of BC, the one that Cassandra and I created, was we're a registered nonprofit, but we will not take government funding. We will not apply for the government grants. We won't take any money from the government, because the minute we do, we're handcuffed. And we noticed that, and that's exactly what happened during the autism funding cuts. Is these big organizations that were supposed to be helping us were silent. And I always, and I said to Cassandra, and she agreed, is we will not take that. We stay grassroots. We're here to help the families and the kids,
Yes.
and that's it.
Mhm.
Obviously, we can't put out these fancy reports and all that stuff because we don't have the money, but we're behind the scenes working with families every day to help them,
Mhm.
either write letters or be their voice if they're scared to go up against MCFD, because a lot of families are, and Brent, when you talk about affordability, that's exactly it, talking about our experiences, once your child's in school, you get $6,000 a year. Yes, that's obviously better than a lot of other children who don't get the funding right now, but we pay out of pocket every year thousands of dollars to keep his support systems up
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
we can see that he's thriving on it. Well, why should any parent have to pay out of pocket to support their child and give them what they need? It's not like we're giving them all these extras. It's supports that they need to be able to thrive and be independent in life.
Exactly, and and that's one of my concerns too. Is that when children are, say, aging out of care, like the individuals that are in government care right now, and when they age out of care now into adulthood, right now the supports are not there for them. Like
Mhm.
and it's like now you're out there, and now you're just they
You're on your
pin this
own.
out against other
When
disabled, right? It's like
when
you want.
you mentioned Ministry of Children and Families, Brent knows the story. I'm just going to retell it a little bit. But when my first wife passed away, like my first wife was disabled. She was in a wheelchair her whole life. Needed 24/7 care aids. So a pretty significant disability, but yet very able in other ways, right? Because she was a teacher for 14 years for the Langley School District. But anyway, she did need the supportive care aids, and when we had our son, the Ministry of Children and Families just very bluntly told us, well, because both you, Neil, and your wife are physically disabled, you are considered high risk parents. That was and they just like bluntly said that, like you're they didn't even try to disguise it. That was the first thing. But the other thing is when my wife passed away, and of course I got my survivor's pension. They clawed it back.
Oh, yes.
But where the Children and Families comes into it is I wrote all these emails to the Ministry of Social Development saying these clawbacks are stupid, and then the Ministry of Children and Families, they I guess they caught wind, or they got referred my complaint, and then they wrote back to me, and they said, well, you know what, Neil, we know you're getting a almost $800 deduction for your survivor's pension being clawed back, but you know what, our ministry, our Children and Families Ministry, will give you up to $800 a month support for care for your son if you pay somebody else to look after your son. So we'll pay the $800 to somebody else so that they can look after your son. And I was like going, and they thought that was a good solution. And I said, are you kidding me? So
terrible.
So number one, they're telling me, like, when my wife was still alive, that we're high risk parents. And then when she passes away, they're like, well, you as the parent don't deserve to look after your son obviously because we're going to claw your survivor's pension, but we'll pay somebody else to look after your son. And
that's heartbreaking.
It's just so like, you realize how stupid, like, it's just so, and I can't think of a better, like, I can be more, I'm usually more eloquent, but I mean, the only word you can use is just stupid. That's all it is. It's just
pretty well to sum it up.
It's just stupidity, right?
Yeah. And out of touch. Like, no, they don't understand. They don't live it. They don't have the lived experience, like, and it's just a couple days ago, they were talking about how important, the public sector is, and to me, like, I left government. The people I worked for were amazing, but there's so much government bloat. Like, they don't, and I'm not bashing the social workers. We have a wonderful social worker. I have friends who are social workers, but there are some people that are working within that ministry that should not be there.
Oh yeah.
And they're the ones making the decision. And, this is why I say it starts at the top with the leadership. There's no leadership. It's not run properly. And then you look at Alison Bond, and it just blows my mind of the responses that families get. Like, when there was we were hearing from families about respite, saying respite was going to be cut, and because it was going to be moving into the family connection centers. And so I wrote a letter and I went to my social worker, because we get respite for our son. And I was like, do you know how much stress you're now adding to our daily life, knowing that this money is going to be cut from us?
Yeah.
And then there was a big letter that went out saying that the people who were saying it was going to be cut, they didn't know what they were talking about. But they were pretty much like, the suggestions they were giving to people were like, oh, well, don't you have family? Can't your family come and help you? Can't your, and that was their suggestion. Or they're like, well, why don't you just go down to part-time?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then again, it hits that affordability piece. Like, they're just so out of touch. They have no idea what they're doing, and they're playing with our children's lives. And and I say this all the time, just like, we live in our lives, our daily lives are unpredictable. We do not know if it's going to be a good day or a bad day. Like, are our kids going to get called home from school? And, full disclosure, my son's school is amazing. I've never had any issues with them. They're fully supportive, but I'm not speaking about the other families that, you look at the exclusion tracker with BC Ed Access, kids get sent home every day. And parents are trying to work. They're trying to make ends meet. And then that's the response you get from a social worker. And we've heard from families, they don't want to go to their social worker. They don't want to flag it to them. They don't want to complain, because the minute you do, you get this red circle around you, and they're watching you.
Yeah. And they, exactly. And then they start questioning everything that's going on. And that kind of stems to a time where I was renting at a place, and talking about workers, where it was, obviously the cost of housing is going up and up and up. And it got to a point where a worker said, well, why don't you find a place there's a place for $850. I go, where's there a place for $850? Oh, I saw it on Craigslist, the worker said. $850. So, okay, well, what's the address? So I'm talking on the phone, I'm Googling this. And meanwhile, I had a friend of mine who was actually staying where we were living, just temporary, because he was having a hard time trying to find housing. And go figure, ironically, the same place that the worker told me was the place that he went to go and check out. And that was actually, there was drug dealers everywhere around there. The place ended up getting boarded up. And it was, not exactly, I said, a place that would be desirable for a person to move into. She goes, oh, well, that's an option. So take it or leave it. And I said, I'm not moving there. I said, I already have a place lined up. Oh, well, you put yourself into a financial crisis. And if you want the government to now look at any kind of funding because you put yourself deliberately in a crisis situation, we will say no. I said, well, you know what? That's autonomy. That's up to me to make that decision, what I feel is best for me. Like, don't worry about that. So anyway, she went, the rhetoric on it was, she just kept going on and on. And anyway, I filed a complaint about the worker, and I just would not step down. I said, no, it's disrespectful. And she was, and the poor receptionist, I remember at the office, I said, well, like, I was mad. And she was, I would be mad too. And I said, well, I have respect for myself, and I have dignity for myself. I actually look at it as, my mom brought me up to respect myself. I said, I have a mother. I said, I had a mother. I don't need a terrible mother who, is dictating what's best for me. I need to make what's best for myself. And I tell you, they were speechless, Elena. They were just like, oh my God, Brent, I'm so sorry. I go, well, I mean, I just want an apology. well, maybe we should reprimand her. I said, I don't want her fired. I just want her to realize that when you say hurtful things or tell people hurtful things, there's repercussions for those actions. And
Well,
that's where,
and good on you for advocating for yourself, right?
yeah.
And that's the important thing. And just think if you didn't make that phone call or write that letter, they never would have known. And how many other people she had done that to, and they were
Mhm.
afraid to speak up.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. Like, sure, like the place that we did move to wasn't the palace. And it was a ripple effect. It was a ripple effect where I think I told you before the story on this, Elena. I might have, maybe not, but we moved to Langley. We were living in the Nanaimo, and we missed the transit, so we moved there, and because we just wanted to bounce around everything. We needed everything there. So we moved to a place where it was supposed to be really good. The rent was much higher than what we were paying, but hey, we were willing to sacrifice it so we could have everything we needed. The place was paint over mold, mildew. This was paint over it. Let's put these individuals right above drug dealers that were down below.
Oh, no.
There was people doing all sorts of things next door. Like, we were just surrounded, and we spent most of our time away from our unit. We couldn't even got to a point we couldn't even open up our windows properly, and it was coming through the floorboards into our fridge. We got out of there, right? We saw a new place getting built, so we moved to it. And we said, wouldn't that be nice to live in a brand new place? Yeah, so we got it. Unfortunately, the underlying issue, long story short, was we moved in, and the premier at the time, John Horgan, he was giving a transportation announcement in Langley. And so Sonia saw a posting about it. Said, John's in Langley, John's. I go, oh, okay. We need to go down there. I said, well, I don't know how fast we can get down there. Boy, I think, was it, you ran pretty quick. We booted down. It was normally a 15-minute walk. We got down there in 8 minutes. So we got down, and he says, what are you two doing here? Oh my gosh. And I said, well, we found a new place. So long story short was, he said, be careful with the corporate landlords. Be really careful with those corporate landlords, because some of them can be really sneaky. Their agenda is to make max profit, and they will do whatever it takes to make that maximum profit. I go, no, like, you have nothing to worry about, John. I mean, they're a really good landlord. They're really good. Well, then you have nothing to worry about. Well, he was right, Elena. He was right. We were wrong. We didn't know. The agenda was that they cleared up 2 floors of the building. But we were only allowed to see the 3rd and 4th floor. We weren't allowed to go to the 1st or 2nd. The problem originated from the 1st and 2nd floor and they had, the manager was going around. Okay, and I can say now, because but the manager was going around, and she cleared out the 3rd and 4th floor. She was doing her drugs in there, and she cleared them out. Everyone was complaining. It was going through the vents, and it was going through the whole circulatory. They have a air circulatory system in the building, and it was going through and it was just going all the way up. Her and her son.
Wow.
And we got to a point. It was in December of the year when we were there, and where are we going to move? Like, we complained, and who were we complaining to? We were complaining to the person that was causing the problem. We didn't know that. So we talked to the tenancy branch. They said, well, our hands are tied. You can go to arbitration. Do you have proof? I said, well, how am I going to get proof? I mean, there was no proof. So we complained. And then anyway, the manager came to us. Long story is that the manager said, okay, I've got another unit on the 1st floor, 2 floors down from where you are now, or another unit. Another unit was more expensive, but the unit down below was dark and gloomy. And we figured that's where the problem is coming from anyway. So anyway, we didn't take it. We didn't take dark and gloomy because we wouldn't have taken it in the first place, right? So we took the more expensive one temporarily because we couldn't just move. They voided out our lease agreement into a higher priced one. But the agreement was that, hey, you could pay the same rate, but when your lease leaves, you're gonna be paying the higher price. And we thought, oh my gosh, like, this was, and I looked at it, it was illegal, but what could we do, right? So my story is that advocacy, fighting on these situations where affordability, one little problem, one little hiccup can cause a whole ripple effect. And so Sonia found a place in Victoria. Out we came here, and we've been here since. And at least we're close to the legislature. We're holding them to account, and basically doing all of our advocacy here. And we'd like to try to find somewhere locally. If we can't move back to Langley, that's our area that we want to go back to. But if not, we want to look at either up on Shelburne Street, way up on Shelburne. It's a huge area, or maybe in Langford, where we can find somewhere where it's affordable.
Yeah, no, Langford's great. The West Shore is great. I was born and raised on the island. I've never left. So
Oh,
I grew up in Esquimalt, and
It's
then
quite almost an area. I like that area too.
it's a nice area. And then I lived downtown for a bit, and then yeah, we're out in the West Shore now. But you have to advocate, and I'm happier in Victoria. I know
yeah.
you love Langley, but I'm
Yeah,
happy you're
it's
here.
changed a lot. Oh, Elena, it's changed a lot. We went out there and it's really grown a lot. Like it's not, it's I think it's because we're used to that scenery, but it's changed a lot in
Yeah. Well, everything
population.
is. Everything is.
Everything.
Yeah.
We have another question from Tara in chat, and she's asking Elena, what is your opinion about applied behavioral therapy?
Hmm.
Do you have a
Oh, ABA.
ABA? Do you have opinions on
ABA. So my personal is, so ABA, from what I've seen, is very different from what it used to be. We used a behavioral consultant for William, for our son, at the very beginning, but he outgrew that. It was very like, the way it was structured was it was pick up after school, and then you went to a table and you practiced writing and everything like that. I've heard horror stories of ABA before. Am I against it? From me personally, from what we've had for our son, no, because it was very different from the stories I've heard.
Right.
I think it's a personal preference. But now he's with someone who takes him out into the community, and it's all community based now, which he loves.
I actually, I have a question for you, Elena, too. What is your view about the hub system that the government was coming out? They had made that hub system. They mentioned about parents could then take their children to the hub versus individual care that was already there. Now they say, well, they want to put hubs around the province, but now people in communities may not have that. They have to go further now to an area to get that service. What's your view on that?
So the hubs are now called family connection centers.
Okay.
That's how they've changed it, because
it makes it sound nicer, right?
It sounds nicer, right? And they've put their political spin onto it, right? It hasn't changed anything. So now I said they've paused that project. There's 4 pilot projects in play right now. But before, there was a lot of red flags with these hubs for family connection centers. So they would be taking away individual funding. So parents wouldn't have a choice anymore. They would have to go into these centers. Now, BC has 52 cities, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, and they were only going to open 40 family connection centers. So that means that parents would have to travel. Now, that isn't an option for a lot of families, right? Due to accessibility or whatever the case is. Another issue was sensory. So you may have a child that wouldn't be able to even walk into these centers because of the lights, the people, the sounds, like all these sensory overloads that would be happening. So they wouldn't even be able to walk in the door. Another, like, the issues just keep going. So the family connection centers, I think at the beginning they thought was a good idea, because they were like, we'll be able to support more children. It's not just children with autism, it's any child with a support need. Well, the issue with that was you're looking at 80,000 plus children coming through these doors, and we don't even have enough service providers now. So they're not looking to get more service providers. All this was going to do is put a wait list up. So kids who were getting services now would now be triaged into, okay, it's all based on needs. So someone like our son, who doesn't have that high of a need, would be put at the bottom of the list and probably not in the door for years.
Yeah, those family connection centers, like, it sounds good in theory, right? But in reality, it was just a cost-cutting measure, really, right? It was
absolutely. It was just to save money.
Yeah.
It was a
Mhm.
way to save money because they were feeling the heat of, so autism funding hasn't had an increase since it started 23 years ago. So
Oh my
that is the
gosh,
same amount.
terrible.
And so you
Yeah.
look at inflation and all that, that's never changed. And then again, you have those families with the other children with disabilities and support needs that don't get anything. So, and they're getting hounded. The government's getting hounded, saying we need support. Every child with support needs support, and I completely agree with that. But I think it also needs, again, and I push this through the advocacy. It needs to be choice. If a family feels that they could be better supported in a family connection center, then absolutely. If a family feels that they could better support their child with individual funding, then yes. It should
Mhm.
come to a choice. It should not just be stripped away from you and told that you're going to do this, because it was this government knows best approach, right? And
Mhm.
they had no clue.
Well,
Yeah, it should always be on the person. Like, it should be a choice of what best suits their needs, not with what government says this is how it's going to go. And yeah, because it doesn't work that way. It's,
No, you know your child best, right?
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. I mean, and that's like autonomy. That's the word
It was
autonomy.
I've lost track of time now, Brent. But I think it was 2 or 3 months ago that we had Sheila Malcolmson on, the Honorable Sheila Malcolmson.
Right.
And before we had her on, I remember telling you that I watched her in question period one time, and she was talking about the stigma of the drug supply, right?
Right.
The drug crisis, the
Yeah, she was the minister. She was
overdose crisis. She was talking about the
before.
stigma of the drug supply, stigma this, stigma that. And what caught me was, the government talks about stigma about that issue, but you very rarely hear the word stigma attached to disability. And there's huge amounts of stigma attached to disability, right? Like we're talking mountains of
Well,
stigma. And you were saying a little while ago, but I didn't want to interrupt you, but you have the government saying, well, why don't you just budget better, Brent? They kind of say, well, it's your fault that you can't afford. Like, they kind of just gaslight, right? It's like,
Yeah.
it's
Mhm.
gaslighting. It's like, it's your fault that you can't afford
well, that's
to
said though,
live
Neil.
on $1,200 a month.
Well, that's what they said though. They said you need to follow a better budget.
Yeah.
And excuse me, like I
And,
lost it.
and that's stigma, like classic stigma and classic gaslighting and whatever other word you want to throw at it. And I mean, that to me, it, like I said, it bugs me that and again, God bless Sheila Malcolmson for coming on the podcast. I give her full credit. Like, she must have known that the possibility of taking some slings and arrows, but we were kind to her. But
Yes.
I mean, it's great that she came on, and I hope she comes on again. But again, my thing is when you talk about stigma, I wish governments would talk about the stigma of disability a lot more, because they just don't. And it's like,
No, I agree.
why aren't you?
Yeah.
It's
And I
it's
feel
almost
that
like
too.
voodoo. It's like a voodoo or some kind of like, oh no, we can't talk about that.
Mhm.
Well, and that's the problem. And I feel like, and I would love to see our elected officials not be so scripted when they're on podcasts, on the news, like, just speak.
Yeah.
People want to know how you feel, and
Yeah.
reading off of a script, like, and you see it all the time. Even, and I've had some conversations with Minister Dean, and we have back and forth, and but when she's reading off a piece of paper, I'm like, yeah, but what do you actually think of it?
Yeah.
I can tell that you didn't write this. This
Yeah.
is not you. And
Yeah.
so it's I would love to see politicians be more real.
Yeah.
That's
It's like when I do my show, I just wing it. I just say how it is, and I don't read from a script. I tried, and I joke about this a lot. And then I had a person ask me, okay, these are the questions I want you to ask me, and these are the answers I'm expecting to hear. And so I tried, and Neil goes, okay, let's try this. And I just totally bombed. I bombed it. I sounded like a
me too.
robot. I sound like a robot. I was just, and I listened to myself back. I'm going, okay, Neil, I am not doing that again. no scripts for you, Brent.
Well,
I mean,
No.
you make a good point about scripts, because I don't know, there was a minister of social development. It was is it uh was it Don McCrae? Is it Don McCrae? I think it was Don McCrae.
yeah, Don McCrae. Yeah.
That's going back a few years now. He was only minister for about a year and a half, I think. But I actually got a chance.
The guy who blocked me. That's right.
I got
Oh my
a chance.
goodness.
Yeah.
I got a chance to meet him face to face through the Disability Foundation, because I used to work for the Disability Foundation, which was founded. It was founded by now I'm drawing a blank, Brent. But anyway, so it's it's the Disability Foundation, and so I was going to see him on for that reason, and it was a really good meeting, and it was great, and then I never, and at that time I actually the clawback, my situation was just starting to happen then.
Oh,
But
okay.
of course I didn't want to talk to him about it. I should have, but I just kept professional. I kind of didn't want to go there. I just wanted to talk about the Disability Foundation. Sam Sullivan is the the person behind it. But so I was just, like I said, professional. I just talked about the Disability Foundation, and then I realized, what I'm gonna write him an email, and it was only like, I think 2 weeks later or something. And so then I got into my whole situation of the clawback, and like you said, it was totally cut and paste. I was like, thanks for your letter, and there was no, like, because I told him, like, it was really nice meeting you, and I gave him a book. I gave him a book that I wrote, my autobiography.
Oh, right.
And
Awesome, by
like,
the way.
and I just did it just because I wanted to, not because I was trying to butter him up or anything. But and so, like I said, it was really good face-to-face meeting, and then I get this response back, and it's like, I can tell it's like not really him writing.
Generic,
Like,
very generic.
he didn't even acknowledge, like, nowhere in the letter. What was it? And this was only 2 weeks later. Nowhere in the letter did he say, like, it was great meeting you, Neil. We had a wonderful discussion. There was, like, none of that at all. It was just like, thanks for writing, but the clawbacks are a thing. Good luck.
See you later.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
And it's just
Yeah.
like, really?
And you know why I got blocked, Elena? You'd be like, why would you get blocked?
Yeah.
I asked, I still remember, I asked a simple question. I was just like, what? I said, dear Minister, could you let me know when the rates for persons with disabilities will be increased?
Blocked.
And so for response, and it was like a very, very polite question, nothing wrong with it. And then boom, blocked. And so I phoned up the government. That's how the advocacy really started taking up even more. And I like, oh, well, we'll have to call you back. So they called me back. The ministry called me back, and the government, and said, well, the minister felt very uncomfortable with your question, and that's why he blocked you. I go, right. So advocacy is supposed to stop because the minister feels uncomfortable about me asking a question. Well, what was your question? I said, what do you mean? What was my question? I said, I already told you my question. I said, it was about raising the rates. Well, the government has to be fiscally responsible. And I go, okay, so you tell a disabled person that maybe they can't pay their landlord because the government has to be fiscally responsible? I go, right, okay. So anyway, long story short, the minister unblocked me and said, I'm sorry that you felt that way. Sorry, I felt that way. That was the response. I'm like, okay, no problem,
When
sir.
you're an elected official, you have to be ready to hear opposing views and hear everybody's opinions. And guess what? They don't like it. They don't like it at
Yeah.
all. They'll shut you down. Like, but going to the letter that you received, Neil, we've had a couple families send us letters from the ministry, and they're different fonts and different colors, like
Oh, yeah.
the paragraphs. So they're
Oh.
literally cut and pasted in,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yet and there's no quality control. Like they just are like, great, send. And I'm like, how
Yeah.
did you just send this out? Like, there's different
Oh.
colors and different fonts in one letter.
Yeah, and they're not even trying to answer. They're not even trying to answer. Like, I ask direct when I write emails. I'm asking direct questions, like, and answer this, you know, like, and usually I keep it to like maybe 2 or 3 questions, you know.
Well, yeah, you want them to read it.
but very direct. Like, can you
Yeah.
please tell me this and this, and
Go ahead.
they say everything else, but they don't even acknowledge that I even asked a question. Like, you know what I mean? Like the fact that I even asked a question is not even acknowledged. It's like, you know, it's like, thanks for your letter. Goodbye.
Yeah. Well, and I think the one thing, like, in even you look at provincial governments, but also too, is I've started to have meetings under the municipal governments, right? So I've asked to be a part of the accessibility committee when Langford decides to form one. They just brought out their strategic plan. So I really read through that and really looked into the accessibility component of it, and also like the advocacy and how they can better support all people with disabilities, whether it's visible or not. And having that go into their strategic plan. Now, that's all municipalities, and I think everyone should really be emailing if they don't have a copy of their strategic plan for the municipality they live in and they can't find it online. Email the municipality and ask for it, and really try to like dig in and find how you can make it better also, because they need to hear from you.
Speaking of advocacy, guess what I got printed up yesterday? I actually got a phone call saying that they were ready, and they weren't supposed to be ready till today. And they sped them up because they felt that the advocacy is very important. I'm so thrilled to say that I got these done.
I love it.
And who designed them for you, Brent?
Neo did. And you know what, you got really like flying stars on that
and
one.
we actually have to acknowledge Birdie, our secretary Birdie. She did an amazing job on the logo. We actually worked on it together. We worked on it together. I gave the art direction. Like, I'm a terrible, you should know this, Elena, like I can't even draw stick people. Like, I can't even draw that. But I admire great art. Like my dad's dad, he's gone now, but my dad's dad was a great, just a wonderful watercolor painter. And so, like, I have an artistic mind in the sense that I can communicate what I want to see on the page, but as far as being able to actually put it on the page, no way. So I know that when Birdie and me got together, we came up with the logo, but she was the one that, of course, put it to the actual page, and she did an amazing job on the logo. Yeah,
that looks amazing. Congratulations, guys. That's really great.
And you know, I said, well, just a few of them. They said, well, there's was it 10 per page? I'm like, oh, 10 per page. Well, I didn't understand, but their page was huge. So and then they said, well, how many you want? So, I don't know. So they gave me a whole box. I got a whole box of them now.
Nice.
And
That's
I thought
great.
it was a lot more, and like, what? Only that much? Okay, well then let's do another batch. So I got like a whole
hand them out every time you meet someone. Hand it out and make those meetings. Get into QP again and make those meetings at the MLAs and hand them out.
Yeah, I had that happen at the legislature one day because they had inclusion BC was there. They had a lot of them that were there. A lot of the organizations. Neil Bourget was there, and I said to inclusion. They said, "Do you know Neil?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." I said, "Where is he?" "Oh, he's somewhere around here." Next thing you know, I came around and they had hot chocolate out there. They were giving out, so I came around and I said, "Neil." Neil was, "Oh my God!" He said, "Oh no, not you." And I said, oh yeah. And so he says, do you got any cards? And I said, no. So I'm thinking, no, everyone kept asking me for cards. I had like 14 people ask me for cards. And I thought, damn, I don't have these cards made up. And I said, Neo, and he goes, so sure enough, I went and got them done. And I'm really happy
Amazing.
to get those done. You
Put
know,
them
and
in every jacket pocket. Put them in
exactly.
everything. So if you walk out, not forget, if you forget them, you always at least have one in a jacket.
I bump into people quite a bit, and they have talked about where would I go to listen to, about the disability issues. So I said, oh, well, now I just say, well, hey, come here and one stop shop, right?
There you
And
go.
Oh, that's
just
great.
listening to about lived experience stories, and we're actually starting a segment starting actually on Monday,
Monday.
a 9-series story. It's going to be about disability stories, lived experience.
I think it's going to be great because like the focus will be on sharing a specific, disability story. That's why they're called disability stories.
And we're running it.
We're gonna dive deep into a particular story and really talk about the lived experience piece.
And then we're gonna have themed ones after that. Like it'll be, if it's on accessibility, is it about like transit, housing, whatever it may be. Like whether it's, the ideas are endless. Is it on municipal levels? I mean, whatever it may be. I think it's gonna be so cool. I'm looking forward to it. And
You should try to get some of the municipal councilors on here talking about their strategic plan. Question them on it. Bring them on. I think it'd be a great conversation. Why not, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it'd be great. And find out what they're gonna be doing about. I mean, sure, they got bike lanes everywhere. I think that's great. I think it's really awesome for people to be mobile out, in their community, accessibility wise. I also want to hear what they want to say about transit, about making it more accessible. And I know you probably heard my story, ranting and raving about that, Elena. But you can get to Duncan. You can't get back the same day. You gotta wait.
Wow.
9:23 in the morning. So you could go out there during a weekday.
Yesterday.
But you can't get back the same day. 9:23.
Wow, I didn't know that.
No, because Cowichan refuses to actually put their service back and forth, and they blame Victoria. Victoria blames Cowichan. So nobody really has to get it done. And they say,
No.
well, it's actually comes up to the CEOs, their decisions, and the business leaders. I said, okay, what about the commuters?
Keep passing the buck. That's what they do.
And they say, well, there's not the demand. I said, that's funny because some of your bus drivers who take the bus, and they tell me differently. So and they told me keep advocating. So that's another thing that I'm advocating for. See, so advocacy never takes a break, doesn't matter what angle.
It really never does take a break. And talking about the bike lanes and transit, I've had that conversation with a Langford counselor previously. I'm not against bike lanes, but I also don't like seeing a lot of people call it war on cars, right? A lot of people are against the cars, but I feel like not everyone can hop on a bike. They have to look at it. People need to take transit. People need to be in their cars, whether it's accessibility or for me, I need my car because if my child needs me, I need to be able to get from point A to point B in a reasonable time, and transit's not there, right? And so I think the look, yes, it's great that we want to make more options, but we cannot take away another one just to fulfill that.
Yeah, we had Sonia's mother come and stay with us. She was here for what, 5 days?
3 days.
Well, almost felt like 5 days.
It felt like 2 weeks.
Yeah. But it was nice though. I mean, because that she came on the bus on a Saturday. So she came over, but you can go to and from the communities in one day, but not during the weekday. Go figure. And so she's still, tries to wrap her mind around the idea that you can't get back from one community to the other one in one day. And I said, no, only on a Saturday, but you got a short trip. I mean, technically, you can go from Victoria all the way to Nanaimo, okay? And you could, on a Saturday, you got about 40-minute layover, turnaround times. You could quickly go there. Hi, how's it going? Visit, have a cup of coffee. Oh, got to get out of here. You can now get back on the transit and go right back to Victoria and connect up in Duncan and then out to Victoria. But on a weekday, yeah, you can get out there. And kudos to Cowichan. I'm not here to basically bash Cowichan Valley for their transit. But I want to make it more accessible for people to get to and from the community, Victoria, vice versa, throughout the day. You know, sure, I mean, kudos to them. They put one on at 1:45. They took off one of their early morning runs at like 5 something in the morning, and they pushed it forward to 9:23, which is good because now people can now get to Victoria, leave at 9:23 out to Cowichan, out to Victoria, get here at 10:45 in the morning. That bus parks at 10:45 in the morning, and it sits there until 1:45 in the afternoon, leaving Victoria back to Cowichan. So her mother, when she left here,
I want to have that. I want to have that job.
yeah. So she actually caught that bus at 1:45 in the afternoon on our last podcast, and she was like, "We gotta go, we gotta go." And I had my guests on. I was like, "Okay, it's not 1 o'clock yet." It's like, "We gotta go." I'm going by. I'm going. No. Like, but she was worried though, Elena. She was worried that she was going to miss that bus because if she missed it, yeah, she could catch it. Well, she could still catch. There was still 3 more buses later. There was one at 3:45, but now she gets to Duncan and then she gets to Nanaimo. Now she's getting there later at nighttime, and her husband then has to pick her up. So she wanted to get there before the rush hour because at 1:45 it beats that rush hour out of Victoria because they can get really gridlock into the Malahat, and that's why Cowichan put the bus at that 1:45 because a lot of the timings to get to Cowichan to go to Duncan, you miss that connection. Now you're gonna have to wait later in the evening. So, and that's kind of where that's at. So she was like, we got to get that fixed. Keep advocating, keep pushing this government, make them do it rather than consultations and studies and all this other damn stuff. She says, wasting our
money.
dollars. Yeah. She says, just get it done. I said, well, in my view, I would actually have the train running. I would have the train going. That would be me.
Yep, I agree. Me too.
Yep.
I think the train would be great. I remember taking it as a kid. It was awesome. You know,
Oh,
like
wow.
there's all these things that we just don't have. And we, again, like you're so right, Brent, there's so much bureaucracy, there's so much red tape, there's so much government knows best. And yet, you know, you don't have to spend $4 million for consultation. It's as easy as doing like a town hall sort of meeting and having people give their opinions, or, you know, surveys and I don't know. There needs to be a component of online and in person because you really need to have both. Like you can't, but it doesn't cost $4 million.
Oh no,
You know
no.
what I
It
mean?
doesn't.
They could have paid me and Brent $40, and we could have given them a consultation.
Well, I mean,
Right?
well, when I,
Like
I look at a basic means of transportation, if you can travel away from, and Neil knows this story. I mean, I've done a Breaking with Brent segment where you can travel away from Coquitlam all the way to Chilliwack, and that's a good distance. And all it took was a BC Transit bus going through TransLink's jurisdiction, and it took the mayors to sign off saying, yeah, no problem, you can run a BC Transit through our community. And they all came to an agreement saying, yeah, let's get this done because people need to go to and from. And here's the thing, it's not a commuter service, it's just an interurban service. So it runs throughout the day back and forth. And they have like, I think over 22 routes on that. And when I remember when it first started, it started from Langley and it actually went to Chilliwack, and they had 8, I think they only had 7 or 8 trips. Now they have massive amount, and we got on and it's full. So it shows that you put the service out, people are going to use it, right? But if the government keeps making excuses, well, yeah, talk to the municipality, and and then you say, well, they say talk to the government. Government goes, yeah, we're still looking into it.
Yeah, we're still doing all the consultation. Well, and that's the thing is though, it's like and I'm going back to the advocacy, the autism advocacy, and I'm sure it's the same for health or transportation or affordability. How many letters, like as our families were screaming from the rooftop saying that this was a bad idea and they needed to stop and change it and listen. Now we wrote, there was tons of letters, I can tell you, like across the board for all these ministries. I can guarantee that these MLAs and these ministers get these letters with suggestions. And it's like, why are we just not compiling that? Like there's so many different things. It blows my mind how they work.
Even on a broader brush too. Like we talk about legislative poverty. I mean, legislative poverty has been a thing for 3 decades.
Mhm.
and you know, it wasn't that long ago that I, you know, I'm no longer on Twitter, so maybe I'm not seeing all the PR stuff anymore from government, but it wasn't that long ago where they put out a tweet saying, you know, tell us how to fix poverty. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? Like,
Consultations,
I mean, yeah, like,
town hall meetings.
yeah, please give us your suggestion on how to fix poverty. And I'm thinking to myself, are you kidding me? You've had 30 years to figure this out. 30 years, 3 decades. And you have to yet again, as you said, study it. You know,
And
you've
you're on
got
Twitter for it. Like you're asking via a
yeah.
platform
It's
that,
like
in all honesty,
like
is pretty toxic.
it's like we have no idea. We have no idea how to fix poverty. You tell us. We've only had 30 years to figure it out, and we still, on purpose, leave it broken, you know. But tell us how to fix it.
But tell us how to fix it. Yeah.
I remember the town hall meetings going with one of the former ministers who we've had on the show too, Honorable Shane Simpson. Shane Simpson. He was the minister for social development and poverty reduction. Of course, they called it a different ministry back then, social innovation or whatever. And they keep changing it every so many years, right? Some fancy
Whenever
name.
a government changes, they change the name.
Yeah,
There's all these government reorgs and
Instead of reduction, though, instead of poverty reduction, they really should say poverty recycle.
Or
I mean, really, I mean, let's be honest and say it's poverty recycle, right? It's not poverty reduction, it's poverty recycle.
Regurgitated.
There you go. Regurgitated is better. Actually, I take that back. Regurgitated is better. Yeah.
Regurgitated. Yeah, there we are.
Yeah.
Like I always say, call a spade a spade. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, going to the town hall meetings, and the minister, I mean, yeah, and kudos to him because I mean, he learned a lot from the disability organizations. He learned a lot from lived experience. People right on the street levels, like. And he said he learned a lot. It opened his eyes. Like he didn't realize how bad the system was. And so we, as advocates, I mean, across BC, we taught him a lot. But of course, when we had a chance of asking, and of course, it was streamlined, Elena. Like the questions was, okay, you only have so many questions that you can ask a question, you can ask a question, and this is, so it was pretty scripted. And I understand because it was like he had a time frame where he could only take so many questions. One of them was, are you going to index the rates to inflation and are you going to raise the shelter rate? Right? No, and yes. Like, yeah. So no to inflation, and yes, the rates will get increased. But one of the people in the town hall meeting, I still remember it stood out, was, well, the housing rates were like $1,000 for a 1-bedroom at that time. Okay, well, and I realize he says that, but he says people have to do what they have to do to make it happen. And one of the ladies there, she says, people are already doing what they have to do, sir. And well, right, but there's no way that the government's going to raise the shelter rate to $2,000. That's not going to happen. Well, and so fast forward to now, or recently, I had a meeting with the now minister, Honorable Sheila Malcolmson, and I came with an idea, Elena, of basically, okay, now like seniors have a supplement. Okay, right now they have it's called Sapers, single mothers, single fathers who are having a hard time financially bringing up their children.
But actually, let me stop you there already, Brent.
Only certain ones had it. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, like I was a single dad for 5 years, over 5 years, when my first wife passed away.
Right.
And they gave me a clawback, like I said, of my survivor's pension. And I mean, you said that they give pensioners a subsidy, a rent subsidy amount, the Safers, and you said they give some, they give some widowers and whatever single parents the subsidy, but I got a clawback. So they're there goes again. That's an example again
For the pink
of
unicorn.
pink unicorns, where I got the clawback
Mhm.
to fund, so the government could fund somebody else's subsidy.
Yeah.
I mean,
So,
you can think about that like robbing Peter to pay Paul, so to speak. So
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
got a clawback so that the government could turn around and fund you know, a subsidy for somebody else. And it's like,
Yeah.
Yep.
how is that fair? And that's where I get to the cherry picking. Like, it's just like the government cherry picks, and they don't acknowledge the truth of what a pension is. A pension is a protected income. And like
Yep.
we've said on the podcast, that grass is green thing, I'm pretty sure that David Eby, Premier David Eby, would get pissed off if all of a sudden, if I got the power to claw back his pension. I'm pretty sure he'd be a little bit pissed off, right?
yeah.
You know,
Any of those any of the MLAs would, you know, and it's
Yeah.
the same deal. It's the same with the autism funding. There was people that saying you rob Peter to pay Paul, you know, and then during the initial like first year after that, they're like, yeah, we consulted with who? We couldn't find anybody. And then we started really digging, and we noticed that they were cherry picking these people that aligned with their vision
Yeah.
and their narrative, and that's who they spoke
Yeah.
to.
That's the same thing that happened with the bus pass, with the PWD bus pass. It was
Yeah.
like 5 or 6 people were consulted, and those 5 or 6 people
Changed
they blew up the bus pass for 5 or 6 votes of like random people just like asked. Yeah.
And so like when I mentioned to the minister, like when I kind of the residential assistance program, basically that's just, you know, for some who could get it. Yeah.
Not me.
So yeah, exactly.
God forbid it be me. God forbid.
Oh yeah. So I mentioned, I said, well, you know, there's the majority of PWD persons with disabilities in BC who pay high market rent. There is a percentage that do live in subsidized housing, who then have the privilege, and I don't mean this in a way of like a privilege of or anything against disabled people that say, well, you know, good on you, you can pay less money. What I mean is that the ones who are able to get into subsidized housing is great, right? Because when I say great is that, yes, you can now pay less in market rent, right? So I have to be careful on how I word it, because people say, well, yeah, but you're pinning a disabled person against a disabled person. No. What I'm saying is that yes, you can now pay less in rent, and more money now you have to put back into the economy. So when I mentioned to the minister that ones who in market housing, who pay in high rent in market housing in the private sector, who are owned by corporations, or maybe they pay maybe they rent from a basement suite, right? So they pay to a landlord. I mean, not a corporation, just a person who owns a house and they're renting out a basement suite or a townhouse or whatever it may be, a condominium. They're still paying into the market sector, right? You're still paying that because you get that $375. Well, it's now apparently it's $500
for some.
Ooh, for some. But now what I mentioned to the minister was make a program, because they got seniors, RAP, I call it the RAP, yeah, whatever. So anyway, or now you can call it I don't know, PWD housing, whatever it may be. I just give it a generic name, right? But you can call it that. So now there's programs, and it's extended under the BC housing umbrella. However, what it needs to be done is it needs to be tied to the person, not the household income. But the minister said, wow, I love it when you think outside the box, Brent.
But and that goes back to our autonomy piece, right?
Yeah.
Or the stigma and autonomy, right? I mean, like I said with Sheila Muckinson before, she was very quick to mention the word stigma when it came to drug supply,
right?
And again, I'm not throwing slings and arrows at her.
Oh, no.
In any means. I'm always throwing slings and arrows at the policy only.
It's the policy that needs to change.
you know,
yeah,
Well, and I think that's the big thing is people take it as personal attacks, right?
it's not
And if
like,
you,
no, it's
and
not.
it's not, it's just, we're looking at the policy, we're looking at the overall program and telling you how it's not working. It has nothing to do with the individual.
Oh
It has
no,
everything
exactly.
to do with the program or the
Yep,
policy. And I think
right.
that's the way, and
absolutely.
you could say that also too with like, um, Twitter or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like you make a comment online and you are bashed, or
Oh,
you
I'm.
say
Oh
one
yeah.
wrong word, or you don't agree with someone and you're thrown to the wolves, right? But it's just kind of like, you have to be able to have a conversation. You have to be able to have different opinions. But it doesn't necessarily mean you're a bad person.
Mhm.
Mhm. It's always great to have the different viewpoints, right? Because that's what it's about, is learning from each other on getting to the actual solution. And the solution
Mhm.
is that the system is a systemic failure on governments who basically won't change the policy. Like, and then, yeah, exactly. It's not the minister like getting attacked onto the minister itself. It's the policy that's administered there that needs to be changed. And then people tell them, saying, "Well, this is what we're seeing. This is what we need to have happen. Change it." And then it's always like, "Well, yeah, or yeah, we can't seem to do this because we need to study it, or we need to have consultations, town hall meetings. But yeah, don't worry, we have your back. We're listening."
We've only had 3 decades to figure out poverty.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
We
don't
we
worry.
need we need
There's
another
more
three
to do.
decades.
There's more
Yeah.
to do. There's more to
We're
do.
already at the top of the hour, Brent. So I didn't know if you wanted to
Okay.
do closing comments.
Or did you want to be on for a little bit longer? It's all up to you.
Yeah. Whatever,
Okay.
whatever you have time
Okay.
for, we can go for a bit longer. If
Yeah, we
like
can
my
go for a
son's
little bit
just on the
longer.
couch playing Minecraft, if he comes in, I apologize.
Oh, my
Yeah,
son would be impressed then.
yeah, no,
Yeah, he
it's great.
loves it. He's a big Minecraft guy.
Yeah.
All right, so I've just learned over time about there's different approaches on advocacy, and I mean I've got bashed a few good times. Well, no, you're not advocating for what I want to hear, or well, okay, I'm
Mhm.
sorry. Well, maybe you advocate for what you want then, like and there's nothing wrong with that. It's
Yeah.
people advocate for what they need to, and
I mean,
um,
when you were on Twitter Spaces,
oh my
you'd
gosh,
you'd have guests leave, and then people would bash the guests, and it's like,
oh I know,
what? You
I know
know,
it.
and I mean, the whole idea behind your show from day one was to invite people on, whether they're just regular folks or politicians, MLAs, MPs, whatever, didn't matter. It was to invite people on to have conversations. That was all it was about. Have conversations about talking about lived experience and
Mhm.
and stepping up to be an advocate for that, or an ally of that. um you know
Absolutely, and
and that
that's
and that was it. And then,
yeah,
but
because that's
you
stories
would get
are.
attacked, or I would get attacked. I was like, why did you
Oh,
invite this
oh,
person on? And it's like,
how
well,
dare you?
yeah.
How dare you have the opposition critic coming onto your show and talk about disability issues? And I was like, what? And I remember that, and I know like the a couple people that had said that to me, and I went, okay. So, and I was joking, and I joked around with the honorable minister, and I said, yeah, like yeah, I was getting bashed for having you coming on my show.
Yeah.
Really? Was that advocacy about? You're supposed to be silent because of one party says no, no, no. How dare you have somebody else
Yeah.
come on? And,
Let's
yeah,
just
Well,
have a
and that,
conversation. What's
yeah,
wrong with that, right?
yeah. And that
exactly.
happened during the autism advocacy too, like it was almost like all the disability groups were pitted against each other.
Yeah,
And I had people come to me be like, why aren't you fighting for us? Why are you only fighting for autism? And my answer was, I support you 100%, but I don't have that lived experience, and I don't feel comfortable advocating for something that I don't know.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
You always fight with what you're familiar with, right? I
yeah.
Yeah.
mean, even before this whole club, I mean, it's funny, like, let's go back to the beginning, Brent, of when you started the show.
Mm.
Like, I was following Brent, I don't know how many years was it before you reached out to me. It was quite a while.
Oh
Like,
God.
I was just kind of randomly following Brent, and he was randomly following me for a few years, or whatever. And
Mhm.
but he never bothered to reach out to me, and I never really bothered to reach out to him. But I knew Brent as the 375 shelter guy, and Brent knew me as the clawback guy. That's kind of,
Yeah.
whenever I would see Brent and go, oh, that's a 375 guy. And Brent would see me as, oh, that's the clawback guy, because you kind of get identified with what you know, right?
Yeah.
And but you're right. I mean, what's the harm in advocating for what you know? I mean, it makes sense that you advocate from a position of what you know and your strength. This is my lived experience. This is what I know, and this is what I'm going to fight for. It makes sense, right?
Well, and also
Oh,
too is if I turn around and advocated and I didn't do it right, then I would be bashed for that, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I 100% stand with the other disability groups, and I will help them however they need. I will do what I will help them, whether it's writing a letter of support or whatever that is. I'm here to help, but my lived experience and my advocacy falls with autism.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. And that's for me. It's like I learned from other people about other and very important advocacy topics that come up. And I learned from that. And I same as you, Elena, like I will advocate for what my strengths are on what my beliefs is, what I want to see changed. Ultimately, what I want to see changed, I want to see the shelter rate completely gone. That's me, like, because you just get a check now, autonomy. You do what you need to do with that income. So you need to find a place that you need for rent. Yeah, let's raise the rates to a livable income, obviously, but get rid of that shelter one. I just find it very archaic. I know there's some other provinces that don't have it in place. They don't even have a shelter rate in place, right? So if you can't claim that is your residence, but you found a place that maybe because the rents are so high that you can only afford maybe $400 or $500 of your income for that rent, but it's not a permanent residence. So you stay at, say, 3 places in a month, but according to the government, it's not a fixed address, so you do not get the full shelter rate. But now,
Yep.
if you didn't have that shelter rate in place, but hey, the landlord says, you know what, I'm sorry for your bad luck. You know what, you can stay with. You can go and stay in our basement. You know what? Just give me $500. That's fine. You know what? And you have access to cable. You had access to our fridge or a kitchen, whatever it may be. Just as I'm just kind of throwing it out there, it's fictionary, but it's an option. But now, according to the government, it's not a fixed address unless you are a tenant. Now you're paying the regular rate. But if that's all you can afford, I mean, you don't get a full shelter rate. No, I think you should get your whole check. And I think it's just fairness and equity in the system.
Yeah, and like you've always said, it's like the system shouldn't be set up where it's disabled versus just disabled, like pitting
yeah.
disabled against disabled, saying, well, you deserve this and you deserve that, and you deserve this and you deserve that. You deserve a rent subsidy and you deserve a clawback. I mean,
because that's your choice, because that's where you choose. You choose.
Yeah, you're choosing that, and again, that's more gaslighting. It's like, if you make a better choice, if you make a better choice, maybe we wouldn't have to gaslight you so much,
Yeah, I mean, here's another quick view. I'm just going to dive into here from now. I'll get to Elena's view on this. A lot of it I hear on the news a lot, and governments talk about it a lot. And I have nothing wrong with it. I think it's a great idea. About they're saying, build more housing. They build more. They call it co-ops. Build more social housing. They call it, and that's great. That's great, right? Get people housed. However, there's a lot of, like, say, disabled who live in, say they live in the private sector. They live in a housing that they live in. Maybe they want to just be independent. They don't want anything to do with government, like that kind of housing, but they want to keep living where they're living. They live in a basement suite, but hey, maybe their property taxes have gone up so high, but now the owner goes, hey, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to raise your rent. Meanwhile, they said, well, there's a long waiting list on social housing under BC housing, but what? Just so you can have cheaper rent, where they can maybe lower the property taxes, or maybe work out a deal with the owners, the developers, to keep those costs down. So now the rents are going to come down. So that's a kind of something that I look at it as, I think every person should always have that option of where the housing what they want to live in, not
You know, and I've
like that.
shared that I happen to have a mortgage. Like, I'm lucky enough that I have, back when I had money, I was able to buy this place.
Until the
But
government closes.
now I don't have money, so I'm really struggling hard to keep this place. But I mean, I'm like teetering on a very, very like on a thread right now. I'm absorbing a lot of debt, and it's like, why? Because the government can say, well, like I was saying, like my place, and again, like, for people that don't know, like, this place that I'm in right now, it's 28 years old. I've lived here now for 18 years. It's a 28-year-old building. I bought it when it was $129,000 18 years ago. It was just assessed. Again, this is a 28-year-old building. Let's reemphasize that. 28-year-old building. It was just assessed at over $600,000.
Oh,
Two bedroom,
oh,
2 bath in Surrey here.
oh,
Over $600,000. So
oh,
guess who's paying the tax on that now? And I mean, I don't have the money. I don't have the
yeah,
money to pay tax on something that was appraised for $600,000.
David, you got a problem here.
And I mean, the government could say, well, you're sitting on a gold mine, like, you should be. And I'm happy, but at the same time, it's like, I'm living here because it's a house. I'm not living here for an investment. I'm living here
Right.
because it's
Oh, it's your home.
if I sold this place, number one, I'd sell it and I have to pay off all my debt. That's the
Right.
first thing. And number two, if I sold it, I would be paying like $3,000 or $4,000 a month in rent. And like, if it was $4,000 a month in rent, that's $50,000 a year. And how many years can I put like $50,000 a year in rent? Not very long.
The average rent price right now, like I was looking under Zumper, and I encourage anyone who's watching our the podcast here or listening to it, if you want to know what rents are, okay, here's a good one, good platform to go to. It's legit. It's not like Craigslist or something that's fake ads or stuff. I mean, I'm not saying Craigslist has all fake ads, because there are some legit ones in there, but Zumper. Go to Zumper and whatever city that you're looking in. So Zumper, if you're on Google, just go Zumper space whatever city. So I put Zumper Langley, just for instance, pulls me up all the listings. The prices, Elena, oh my gosh, to over $2,000 in some cases for a 1 bedroom. I mean, there was a place that we rented from. The place should be torn down. I mean, nothing against the landlord, but 1995 for the same place that we rented from, and we were paying $1,395 for that same place. Nothing's changed. Get some paint
I think
over.
I think the hard part here too is the government's not making it easier. We've got high interest rates. People are going to remortgage their home, and before they had a really low interest rate, and now you're looking at 6-7%, right? And that is a huge jump. And I bet there are some landlords out there that are out there to make money, but then I think the other landlords are just trying to cover their bills, right? So,
Yeah.
A portion of their mortgage, the property taxes, if there's a strata fee, like there's all these variables, right? And I don't think there's a lot of homeowners that are actually rolling in the dough right now with this.
No.
But the rents are nuts. And I
well,
feel for them. But then,
of
course, again, Neil, sorry, just one last thing is I feel like here's that other thing where government is pitting the landlord and the tenant against each other, right? Landlords, if you own a home and you rent out, you're a bad person, right? And it's like, no, you can help alleviate this.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I'm still here. I'm still in my place because the reality is it's still way cheaper for me to try to struggle and stay here. Because it's only costing me maybe about 18 or $1,900 a month. which is comparable
Mm-hmm.
to a reasonable rent, so to speak. So like, why wouldn't I try to stay here, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to just roll the dice and like maybe I'll get lucky and get something that's sub $2,000. Like I'm already at sub $2,000. So why wouldn't I struggle and try to stay here, right?
Well, like a whole PWD check wouldn't even cover like a might say month's worth of rent. Like, oh my gosh, like over $2,000, 2,000. Some places are $3,000 for a for a place. 4,000 in Vancouver for a 2 bedroom. 4,000. PWD
Yeah.
500 maximum.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, so then they wonder why the government wonders why that PWD are getting very upset, especially with the federal government just announced that in their fall economic statement, there's nothing in the budget for PWD after 3 years of promising 3 years and $0. So yeah, like it was a Bill C-22 for people that are watching, which is Canada Disability Benefit that was promised back in 2020, down beginning of COVID there, and everyone kept getting announcements. Well, we're going to help this part of the population. This part of the population. I used to joke around. I saw you'd say, "Oh, Justin Trudeau's on." I said, "Oh," so we joked around. We called it a nickname. I call it, "Oh, the Justin Trudeau show." Oh, okay. So sit down and breaking news comes on in News Hour. Okay, well, global news is now done. Okay,
Yeah, because he would come out of the house, right?
come out of the
stand,
Oh,
stand,
right.
stand out,
Yes,
stand out in front
on
of the
his
house.
steps.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then so of
Yeah,
course
I remember that.
and then the news hour is on. Oh, the news hour is now over. So I'm listening, and I remember posting on the Twitter, like, oh well, maybe tomorrow we'll get an announcement. Another day would go by. Seniors, oh yeah, seniors, we hear you. Yeah, and we're here for you. All these things. And I thought, okay. And so I was talking to a neighbor of mine. I said, yeah, gee, I wonder if they're going to mention about Canadians with disabilities. Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, for sure. The very last person, part of the population, we hear you, and yes, we're going to be doing something, and so they announced it, and so I thought, oh, okay, interesting. And I remember getting onto social media, and that was before the time that I reached out to Neil, right? Because I was keeping an eye on this situation. I thought, I wonder where this is going, right? And so they basically passed, I guess this bill into reading, right, into the legislature, and then they called an election. They called an election, right? The first reading of the bill, poof, gone. And then they redid it again. Well, they basically called it Bill C-22 instead of Bill C-35. So now nothing was done. Like they got the framework, and I always joke about my pot of spaghetti episode. It's like, okay, you tell me to boil this, you make spaghetti, Brent. So you got the pot of water boiling, but where's all the ingredients? I got the noodles in, okay, but you're gonna put in all these your spices and everything else. No, I just got the pot of spaghetti going, the water, but I didn't put the noodles in because I don't have them. I don't have all the ingredients. Well, where are they?
Yeah.
I forgot to consult with people. Basically the disability community. Oh,
Yeah.
You want us to fund the bill too? You want us to throw
oh,
money at the bill?
yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Well, and
Was
that's the thing
was
is
that part of the plan?
exactly. Announcements are great, but we want results. We want outcomes,
Yeah.
like announcements after announcements. Oh yeah, we're doing this. And then, and you're going to see a lot of it in this coming year because
Oh, yeah.
you've got the provincial election set for next October, and then you have the federal election following in 2025 if it's not called early. So you're going to see all these new announcements come up.
Mhm.
Right. But it's just like really pay attention to them and then hold their feet to the fire and make sure they actually follow through on them. It's one thing to say it, but actions speak louder than words.
Oh, exactly. I mean, people are suffering now too, and there was a lot of petitions that were put out by MPs. MP Benita Zarello and MP Mike Maurice basically put out two petitions and they were signed. I mean, they were really going gung ho, really trying to stand up to get Canadians with disabilities an emergency support called DERB. We all called it DERB. And where that name came out was actually, it was through a Twitter space I had once upon a time. And we actually came up with that word, derb, in there. And so it developed, it just blossomed right up. And so we figured out it's not going to go anywhere. It did. It actually took
The
off really far.
origins of derb.
Yeah.
Trace back to you.
Yeah, but it all went to deaf ears because, you know, it was the government says, oh, well, we can only focus on one thing at a time, the Canada Disability Benefit, or DERB. And yeah, we don't really need that right now. So yeah, it's been a hurdle, and people are watching this podcast and or listening. Definitely come, reach out to me, reach out if you want to come on the show and talk about lived experience stories, and we're exposing it out to the government, so the government is watching the what's going on. They hear things, right? We keep putting pressure on municipal levels. Go to your city councils, go to your mayors, talk to your local MLAs, go to your MPs, start from the bottom and work your way up, hold them accountable, tell them
we do know that Sheila Malcolmson has actually told you that she actually listens to the podcast.
Yes,
so,
she does.
So again, full marks for her.
Yeah.
It's great. We want to see more politicians, MPs, MLAs tune in.
Even Neil, even the critic for the BC United Party, we've had him on, Honorable Dan Davies. He even said too, you got to hold. It doesn't matter who's in power, you got to hold the government to account. He even said too, he says, I mean, our government, he said, they messed up. He admitted, our government did mess up, and I thought, okay, and kudos on you, yeah, bravo, and he says, I admit, we made some mistakes that we shouldn't have made, but any government should really, he says, admit that going forward, if they've messed up, just admit it. And for me, I could say, yeah, hey Neil, I messed up, I should be paying attention when you say, okay, oh yeah, hey, I admit, I screwed up, hey, I admit it, and I move on, right? We move on. If you make a mistake as a politician, maybe you didn't hear it, or maybe a policy decision, say, yeah, I need to do better, and I will. It's nothing wrong with saying
that goes a long way.
It does. It really does.
And we've said this too a lot of the time too, but it bears mentioning again. It's we don't invite people onto your podcast, or you don't invite people on just so that we can all agree with everything that everybody's saying.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not the idea. The idea is to have a conversation, and whether you agree or not agree with everything, it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. The important thing is to have the conversation and say, let's put the idea out there. And I'm not gonna agree with everything that Elena is saying, but we're gonna have the conversation anyway, or whoever comes on, right? It's it's not carte blanche. You're not going to agree with everything I'm saying. I'm not going to agree with everything you're saying. But it does. My point is, it doesn't matter. Let's have the conversation and get it out there. And it's let's not play partisan politics where it's all about having to agree and having to stick to the party line. It's not about that. It's about getting ideas out there, and whether you agree 100% or not doesn't matter to me. That it doesn't matter.
Well, I find that say some of these advocacy groups too, though. I like what you mentioned, Elena. Some of them they'll silence the person out. No, you can only advocate so much. After that, no, you can't say this and you can't do that. And wow, it's silencing the person's voice out, what they want to push out there to see change happen.
Yeah. It's important to make your voice heard.
I wanted to do a plug. I want to do a plug before I forget.
Yeah.
We were talking about DERB. We are going to have Mike Maurice on the show with Jeffrey Salisbury, and he's the author of the latest petition for DERB. We're going to have them both on at the same time. It's going to be December 19th. So everybody, and it's on the show calendar. Remember, I have that link on the bottom of every video. If you click on the link, It's got the PWD LA show calendar. It's booked on the show calendar. You can click on it and look at the calendar. You can see it's booked for December 19th. So I hope people will tune in for that, because it's going to be great. We're always excited to have Mike on, and to actually have the author of the petition on for DERB is great too. And so it's going to be a great show.
Yeah, we're already we already have one person booked all the way into January already.
Yeah.
Elena. Well, like that's as far as already going. Yeah.
That's so good. That's so good. Good for you.
I know. It's awesome, right? And XA advocacy never takes a break. I mean, I take a break for myself every so often, you know. You have to, right? But
you have to.
Yeah. But you know, I mean, but advocacy doesn't never stops.
No.
You know, and I encourage people to express their voice, bring your voice forward. I mean, talk about the issues that affect your life. I mean, government policies, their decision making, and like we can make change happen. Unified, doesn't matter on what advocacy that you're pushing forward, but what affects your life. If you become united across the board, we can basically make a lot of changes happen, make things better for people's lives. You know, is it all the way from autism to ADHD to is it Parkinson's disease? I mean, like all these different things, like across. Is it about rates? Is it about bus passes? You know, I mean, whatever it may be, it affects people's lives, and we can make changes for awareness. Definitely, I know we can make things better. Speaking of bus pass, I wanted to throw this in. I learned something the other day. So we got on the bus, and Sonia's mom says, "How much is the bus fare?" I said, "I don't know. I got a bus pass. I don't know." She goes, "What do you mean you don't know?" Well, I've got a bus pass. I don't know. So the sign there, she's looking at it. Oh, she's like, "Oh, seniors rate." I said, "I couldn't tell you." I said, And I thought, wait a minute, seniors. It rang a bell, Elena. I thought, interesting. So I looked it up, and while Sonia was Googling it first, she goes, I think they can pay a reduced seniors concession rate. I go, there you go. And I said, no, there's something more to it. So I was reading up, and I said, oh, the seniors bus pass. I saw that on the bus.
$45.
I saw that on the bus. It said BC Transit. I thought, wait a minute. I'm looking at this from on the little panel they have on the bus there, Neil. I'm going, oh, yes. 60 to 64. I'm like, oh, yes. They can get that $45 a year bus pass. I thought, no.
But for PWD, it went poof, like the pink unicorn.
It changed magically. You can choose between having funds or having your bus pass.
Yeah.
But cost of living going higher, and that's the sad part.
Do you want to eat, or do you want a bus pass?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna advocate get that brought back, because John Horgan did say when he was in government, just give them back their bus pass. Just give them back their bus pass. You know, it was a basic means of transportation. But as soon as they formed government, it never happened. It's still
yeah.
But anyway, so Sonia's mom's gonna be applying for that bus pass, just so you know, seniors bus pass.
Yeah.
So it's gonna make her life.
And I've made the point before as well. And sorry if it seems like I'm repeating my themes today, but I think a big problem is that there's not enough people with disabilities that have positions of power. Like we've talked before of Terry Fox, because I was about 12 years old or so when he passed away in 1980. I was around 12 years old, I think. And so I was old enough to remember the impact that he had. Like,
it's huge.
I remember, he stood up in front of on cameras and microphones, and you could tell, like, even for me at 12 years old, and he was a young man too. And you could tell even at his young age too, like he already understood, like he was willing to step up and say, this is bullshit. I'm going to fight. And we need more people like that. There's not enough, unfortunately. I mean, there's lots of disability advocates out there, but there's not enough that are in really significant places of power, I feel,
Mhm.
to really make, I mean, like I'm only one guy and you're only one guy. And unfortunately, like I don't hold the hammer of government to say, you know what, David Eby, this pension clawback is bullshit. Because
Mhm.
if you gave me power to claw back your pension, I'm pretty sure that you'd be pissed off too. You know,
Right.
like unfortunately, I don't wield that. I would love to wield that power, but I don't have that power.
Yeah.
And you know, again, you think back to, and I'm sorry if it feels like I'm putting him on a pedestal, because I'm not trying to, but really,
It's frustration. I mean,
Terry Fox was one of those people that, I mean, he was, to me, he was the greatest Canadian.
Terry Fox.
Like he represented Canada more than any other, and it wasn't just because it's not just because I'm just disabled and he was disabled.
Mhm.
It's
No, got it.
like, to me, he really like he embodied the Canadian spirit of like, this is bullshit. I'm gonna stand up and I'm gonna like again. I was only 12 years old, but already I knew, and he was, like I said, he was a young man too. He was what like 18 or 17, 18 or something like that, or
Around there.
maybe a
Yeah.
bit older, but not very much older.
Yeah.
But already he had the understanding of what it took to stand up in front of microphones and in front of cameras and
Mhm.
give that passionate speech and say, like, I'm gonna fight, and you in government, you're gonna listen. You are going to listen to me, and we need people like listen to me, right? And he was one of those, but
Mhm.
that's so far and few between, and it sucks. Like it sucks. Like I and again, I'm not trying to, like, I would love to have that hammer, like, you know what I mean? Like I would love to have the
Yeah.
Thor hammer
Yeah.
and say bam, like,
Yeah.
let's get rid of all clawbacks, bam, because clawbacks are bullshit, bam.
Yeah.
I would love that,
Yeah.
but
Exactly.
unfortunately,
Reality is
so I don't know if I'm rambling, but
no, no, no. You.
I just wish that, again, we had more people in power with
Yeah.
disabilities that could really step up and say, there's not enough people with disabilities in significant power saying this is bullshit. And I guess that, that's my closing comment.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely, Neil. I echo, your sentiments on that, because I know that, and when I used to have the open mic going on Twitter Space, in between the guests coming on, we would talk a lot about carrying our voices forward, right? And that was one of the themes that I would talk with people about too, is, advocates, and they would say, yeah, like, we want to see this change happen. I said, well, I'd throw different ideas, and I'm not saying that all these ideas that I would come up with, like, yeah, like I'm, saying that, well, this is how it works, this is what you got to do. And but having their voices heard, like, getting out there and in the community, and letting, like, people in just the general public, and talking to people, and then echoing your thoughts, and saying, like, this is what's going on in the system. Well, then they talk to people, and then they say, hey, I didn't know that the system is broken that bad, or it was like set that way. Or talk to your MLA, like talk to your city council, like accessibility wise, like how can you make your community more accessible for you, and for your peers, like people around you that is it your family, your anyone that that has a disability, or anyone that maybe not just having a disability, but anyone that you feel that something is impacting their lives. Is it that you want the city taxes to be allocated in a certain way for housing, like different kind of housing, whatever it may be? Is it transit? How it affects your life? So we would talk about a lot of these things, and people say, "Oh yeah, these are great ideas," but getting your voice out there, like, and people would say, "Well, I'm scared about speaking up, though." I'm like, why are you scared? Like, don't be scared. Like, why were you scared about speaking up? Well, because the government will shut me down. Why? What, for speaking up? I remember one person said to me, Elena and Neil, like, well, the government will shut me down. I'm like, what, for speaking up? So how you feel it? I mean, if you're rude and obnoxious, then yeah, they're gonna say, no, that's not tolerated. And and I agree. Like there's different approaches on getting your word out and being respectful, having respectful dialogue, but making your point heard, but doing it in a respectful way. Because
Mhm.
otherwise, it's the policies. It's not the minister. It's not like otherwise. They take it as a personal attack, and I don't like I don't condone personal attacks. I been there, done that. I've had that happen to me, personal attacks. So I know how it feels.
I have a funny story about Shane Simpson. You know, when I met him for the first time,
Sure.
because you know, and I mean, I've gone on record a number of times saying like he's great. Like I have no issues with him whatsoever.
Yeah.
But like I used to fight him all the time through email. Like I would send him like, you know, pretty pointed emails saying this clawback is crazy, you know, and I'm sending him like all these emails,
Yeah.
and you know, I admit like maybe some of my emails would be crossing the line a little bit, but I mean
Kind of hard.
I would never like be attacking him though. I was always attacking the policy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And but like it's, you know, it's hard to control your passion sometimes because you just, you know, and so you know, I got the chance to meet him when he had the public consults for the Accessibility Act
Mm.
out in Surrey, and he was. It was funny. I thought, well, I'll go a little bit early, and on the off chance that he like I might be able to talk to him before everything starts to talk about the clawback and everything, and you know, lo and behold, he was just. And it was just like on an October evening. It was October of 2019, I believe. And he was just standing out. You know, it was dark and kind of cold, and he was just standing outside by himself. And I thought, wow, this is crazy. So I approached him and I said, "You might not know who I am. My name is Neil Matheson." And right away he says, "I know who you are." And his face kind of went white. Right.
Oh.
And he started to like walk away. And I said, "Well, just wait a minute, 1 minute." I said, "You know, like I'm never gonna be attacking you, the person. I'm only attacking the policy." And once I calmed him because he was gonna run. He was
He
gonna
was taken
bolt.
off.
He
Yeah.
was gonna bolt, but I said, "No, wait
No.
a minute, wait a minute. You know, I'm not attacking you. I'm not attacking you, the person. I'm attacking the policy." So once I said that, we sat down, had a nice conversation, you know, and I've loved the guy ever since, you know, and I mean, you know, all politicians can make mistakes, and they can make things or do things that they wish they could have done better, and I'm sure Shane Simpson is no exception to the rule, but you know, I love the fact that he would at least be willing to have those conversations, and so his first instinct was to like, oh, you know,
I
but
gotta go.
I gotta go.
Yeah.
But at least he was like, oh, okay, I'll talk to you, you know, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know,
Because there was a
full
time when
marks, full
because
marks.
he was a time when he was in Vancouver, and there was at the public library, and they had a gathering of some advocacy groups that were actually there, and he was giving a presentation, and he was standing at the door, and they had this buffet. Well, we were reading about it, and there was like, you know, it's just first come first serve coming into it. And I thought, oh, that'd be kind of neat to go down there. And we were in Langley, so we went all the way from Langley all the way to Vancouver, and Shane Simpson was there, and he spotted us. Same thing, Neil. The same reaction was, all of a sudden, oh, he was like, he was right at the door. It was like, you know, it was like in the basement of the library. If you've ever been there, Neil.
Yeah.
But it was gloomy. Like it was not really a scary place, but they had public washrooms in there, down there. But yeah, some questionable characters that were kind of from a distance. But I mean, it was still safe. But anyway, Shane was just like, okay. He spotted us. I go, no, Shane, hang on for a second. He goes, oh, hello. I go, oh, yeah, there was a buffet going on, and you have some advocacy groups that were here, and we wanted to come and hear what the advocacy groups had to say. Oh, is that the only reason? I go, actually, no. Actually, I wanted to come here actually and see you on a personal level. Oh, okay. And boom, he was completely relaxed, and he was like, thought right away. It's like, oh God, he's advocating. Oh no, gotta get away.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
as soon as we just relaxed him, and then it was all great. Like it was, and
Yeah.
that's how we got to know changed from that point on. And he was frustrated too, Elena. Like there was like some changes that he wanted to see changed in the system when he was in government as a minister. The system wouldn't let him do it, and so for whatever reason it is, I mean, as a real person, like he advocated because he wanted to see change too. And I don't know, like it's just, I think it's just a systemic thing that is embedded in policies that need to be changed. And I think a lot of these policies were written way back, I mean, decades and decades and decades ago and I think it's more like some copy paste, tweak it up. But it's just, and it's, I always joke about the current minister, and this is nothing attacking the current ministers all the time or whatever. But don't worry, we're coming with a state-of-the-art computer system. It's going to be able to handle big payouts because the system right now can't handle the payouts. And was it Sonia? What would you call it? She calls it little pittance. Little pittance. Yeah, that's right. And I call it breadcrumbs. She calls it pittance. And I said, and I said to the minister, we just need to bring the rates up to a livable income. And different advocates have different viewpoints on what is that level going to be. Is it above the poverty level? Some call it a livable income. I just say up to a standard livable amount that people need, like, and what will that be? I don't know the answer to that. Just enough where you're going to have all your needs met, plus your disability supports, whatever it may be that things come up in life that you need. Is it mineral supplements that you need to take that you don't qualify because, you have to have these conditions through the ministry that you've got to apply to have them? Well, just if it's a $75 mineral supplement you need per month, then just, have it there so that person can just say to the ministry, yeah, I need it. Okay, there you go. Like you can have that income, whatever it is. And just it's added to your support check every month.
And the thing for me is like, there seems to be this prevailing attitude. Again, we're talking about 30 years worth of governments that have done this. It's not just one regime of government. It's like 30 years worth of government, and they're all like, well, this has worked for 30 years. Let's keep doing the wrong thing. This doing the wrong thing has worked for us, so let's keep doing it. And it's like at some point you got to realize, well, okay, you're still doing the wrong thing. When are you gonna step up and actually do the right thing?
Well, the thing is, the way I look at it too, Neil, is that it just affects people's lives in so many ways. It's not just their lives, but it's their families too. It's it starts all the way from the children's ministry all the way up to adulthood, right? So it's a whole ripple effect of not having the support services. Either is it from the ministry or is it in the schooling system? So it's all interconnected in so many ways. And Elena, like, I mean, I'm sure, like, you probably hear lots of like letters being sent in how these policies, things like that, have impacted people's lives and their decision making of going, well, what do I do now? Like,
yeah. Well, and there's also the question it's being called is, why is the autism funding, why is the disability funding under MCFD? Why is it under the Ministry of Children and Family Development? Why is it not under Ministry of Health? Why do we not have a disability ministry, right?
Exactly.
And that was
100%.
a big thing. So like autism is a medically diagnosed disability. So there was that always thought of the health. So Children's Autism Federation of BC spoke to the budget committee. I spoke one year and Cassandra spoke the second year. And in both years, we said, create a disability ministry. Like, why are we not doing that yet? Or put us under health. There's no reason why we should be under MCFD. Because there is, like, I hate to say it, but there's great mistrust with MCFD. Parents do not trust them. Parents do not want to have anything to do with them or feel supported by them. So why are we sitting under there?
Yeah, and they've made a lot of mistakes. I mean, the distrust is warranted, I have to say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't agree with.
And again, like I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but we all know the history of children and families, and we all know the massive amounts of mistakes that have been done.
Oh my gosh.
yeah, like there's a whole laundry list of and again, decades worth of mistakes.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it doesn't just fall
yeah.
under like the short term. It is like you said, a long laundry list over years and years and years, but they don't try to fix it. Right.
Yeah.
Like
Yes,
so
it's like tweaking it
that's
up
my
there.
thing. And
Yeah,
you can't build trust back with parents if you're not open and transparent. And that's always been my big thing too, is there was no consultation before they decided to cut the funding in 2021. This consultation process, I feel like, me personally, I look at it, there's so many barriers. Like they're like, we're doing a series of having doctors on, which is great, but now you have to go online, you have to sign up through Eventbrite, and it can sell out. So what if
gosh.
someone doesn't have access to the internet? What if someone
Yeah.
doesn't have, like, there's too many barriers here. And we need to get this messaging communicated out to the parents without adding all this red tape and barriers and walls, because you're not going to gain trust that way.
And that's like I say, it's a huge accessibility issue too, because now you're just saying, well, if you can only come on to online, well, sorry, too bad, so sad, right? Why not have it in public, in a hall or something? Make it more accessible for people to get to and have their voices heard, rather than just silence people out.
Exactly. And I've only seen it, I keep calling it Twitter. It's X now, but
I call it Twitter.
We all know, right? The only thing I've seen it on is social media. So it's not even like I'm registered. I have a registered social worker, but I haven't gotten an email about them. So what if a parent's not on social media? Then they don't know this is happening unless someone tells them.
That's what I mean. It's a huge accessibility issue.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, it's just so many things that are just not connected. The dots are not connected. Did you know also that they used to have a ministry's office? Some people don't know that, but they used to have a disability ministry's office only for a short period of time. I think
it wasn't very long. It wasn't very
maybe
long.
3 years, maybe 4 years, maybe at the most.
I think less than that. Yeah.
Yeah, less than that. It was just temporary. I'm like, oh, what is this office? Oh, this is a disability office. Oh, okay. And then they merged it all into one office. Yeah. And then
save money.
We've now reached the top of the hour too.
Okay.
So
okay. Yeah.
So
well,
I think we can officially launch into final comments now, Brent.
Yeah. Okay. I'll send it over to you, Elena.
Oh, well, thank you both for having me on again. This is great. I think this discussion was wonderful, and it's just so important that people really, I've said this before, but have your voice heard. Don't be afraid. And then if you are afraid, find someone who's not, and have them write the letter and on your behalf. I've done that before. There's ways to get your voice heard, and just don't stop, because if they don't hear from you, they don't know.
Thank you so much on that. That's so important to have your person's voice heard. Either if you don't feel that you can speak up, or you feel that your voice is not being heard, and somebody else that can pass on your thoughts on to a written letter to an MLA, or some level of government, whatever it is, from local government to provincial or federal. Then yes, I mean, definitely your voice is still going to be heard. It just may not be heard directly from you, but carried on. I like that because it's like I say, your voice is still going to be heard one way or another. Never shy away from it. And that's one thing I've learned over time is if you believe in what you believe in, never stand down to what your beliefs are, because otherwise you're actually letting yourself down for not standing up for what you believe in. And that's one thing my mom always taught me.
Don't stop believing.
Yeah, okay, that's a good song. But no, she always told me to always stand up for what you believe in. And I just want to mention when you're talking about microphones, it's not. I remember a time, Elena, at the legislature, I went there and for a disability advocacy issue at the minimum wage way back when, and that's so when advocacy really took off. I actually fought about raising minimum wage at the time in BC, and it actually went with the BC Confederation of Labor. They actually invited me. I actually did a little podcasting, and they actually put me on YouTube, and they filmed me outside my former employers. It didn't go over too well. Oh yeah, oh boy, yeah. But that was so fine. They said, "Are you fine with that?" I said, "No, I'm fine." And one of my bosses came out, not my full boss, but came out and said, you got to get that camera off here. No, it's fine. You can go back in. Oh no, he's fine with it. So they kept on rolling. I said, let's keep on rolling. So they kept the camera going, and so they filmed me, and they asked me, well, why are you allowed? Why are you doing this? What have we done to you? And I said, it's about standing up for other British Columbians. It's about standing up for their rights, about having a dignified income, right? And I was looking at it because from a point of view is that people in my community were saying, well, the wages weren't high enough, the cost of living. Of course, the cost of living then was lower, but I still saw things slowly going up a little bit, right? And so when I got flown over to Victoria from there, we got taken over there, and all these cameras in front of me, Elena, all these cameras and all these microphones right in front. Imagine every TV station, every radio station, all these ones all taped up in front, and there's spotlights and cameras from a distance in a room. And like, okay, so you're going to be live on TV in about 2 minutes. So it gave me a heads up. I'm like, and I could just feel the sweat pouring down off my here. And I'm like, okay, and they're like, Brent, just be yourself. It's fine. Just be yourself. Just say how it is. I didn't have no script in front of me. I had a little cue card of little things I wanted to actually say. And you know what? I actually didn't even look at them. They were like things to highlight to kind of refresh your memory of this is what you need to talk about. I just winged it. Mm-hmm. And I winged it from that point was I said, I'm here standing up for British Columbians. I'm standing up for what I believe in, and that is having a livable income. And then from that point on, I got to meet different disability advocacy groups. They were there too at the time. And it was in a hall where a lot of the government of the day was in, and the opposition, which is now the government now is in. I got to intertwine with everybody in there. It was so neat, Elena, where I looked at what they have to discuss when kind of what each basic point was, their viewpoints of seeing where things were at about advocacy. And they all agreed with me that rates had to be increased at that time, about like minimum wage or disability rates, whatever it was. And I thought, wow, like this is like really cool. So I think I got everybody, every single MLA that was in the room laughing at the time. I said, so, and I go, where's Gordo? At the time, I just said, where's Gordo? And they're like, and I think they were shocked because they weren't expecting me to say that. And they're like, Brent, actually, he's actually in a meeting. Oh, how convenient. I'm here. I flew all the way here, but he's not here. Oh man, I said, I guess I better turn around and go back. No, you're here. You got a speech to do. I'm like, no, I don't. Yeah, you do. But yeah, so that's kind of where my advocacy started. A lot of it did. Did advocacy beforehand, but I guess learning thing going forward is keep up the advocacy, keep up the fight of what I believe in and what other people believe in. And just keep going forward, like stand up for what you believe in, and don't keep stopping. Like just don't stop believing, as the song is. Don't stop believing, right?
Exactly.
Any excuse that I have to sing, I'll do it.
I know. karaoke. Yeah, exactly. I think that's what I'm gonna have to get for Christmas is a karaoke.
They're pretty fun.
Yeah. But yeah, I wanna thank you, Elena, for coming on today. I'm gonna have to have you back on again probably in the new year, early in the new year. Yeah.
Anytime. I'm happy to come on.
Great.
This is great.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm looking forward to having you back on, and all the advocacy. They say it never takes a break, and hearing your viewpoints of how things are affecting people in your community. It's very important to hear that, and echoing out what I'm hearing around my part of the community here, and on this part of the island, which is not far from where you are. But I just keep on channeling out their voices forward, and the voices are being heard. We just need the government to actually now hear these real lived experience stories, because it changes the whole narrative.
And talking about lived experience stories, I'll put up my producer hat on again. On Friday, we're going to be rolling out our first official open mic. We did try to run them way back when we first launched on YouTube, and it didn't really work that good. So we're actually going to be officially launching them for reals this time on Friday. We're going to try to do it every Friday, but this is going to be the first one, open mic Friday. And then on Monday, we have our first new segment, the disability stories. And that's going to be great as well. So
except there won't be. Sorry, Neil.
Sorry, go ahead.
There won't be an open mic on December 1st, though.
Yeah.
I'll be in Nanaimo that day.
Brent has already vetoed that date, so yeah.
I've already killed that date off. So almost every Friday open mic. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. Well, thanks for tuning in.
Thanks everyone for tuning in, and tune into your favorite podcast on Spotify or wherever you find it more suitable to check out. And if you really like this, listen to the whole episode back again. And Jesse, tell your friends, family, any other disability advocate to come on to the show. If you really like what you're hearing on the content, subscribe, and definitely keep following Breaking with Brent segments, Coffee Time, Traveling segment, whatever it may be, whatever suits your fancy.
Every time somebody subscribes, or anytime somebody likes a comment or shares something, it helps to grow the channel. So I encourage, even if you don't want to subscribe, at least drop a comment or put a like or share, and it really helps to grow the channel a lot. So
most definitely. And then if I bump into you, I will pass you. I'll pass you up.
You're so official now, Brent. You're so official.
There we are.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for tuning in.
Thanks everyone.